Hello, I'm Mike Urton, and I'm here today with Keith Draper, Regional Director of Church Relations for World Relief at their DuPage County office in Carroll Stream.
Great to be with you.
So as we begin here, tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get involved with refugee ministry?
From the most unlikely of sources. I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, just a few hundred people, not a diverse setting, but ended up in college in a college that was very diverse, and while I was there felt a call toward ministry that took me to do a summer internship among immigrant populations, and really God woke me up to the nations and gave me a heart for them. And when I came back from my summer internship, I asked him how I might get more involved in pioneering work, the mentor I had, and he said, I'd like to get you interviews in New York, San Francisco, and Chicago. And I just thought he didn't understand me when I said pioneering work, and he said, well, where do you think our biggest pioneer fields are? It's our global cities that have touched the nations, and we really need people who commit a lifetime in those places if we're ever going to make any difference. Well, I'm really happy to show you a map that I have here in my office, and this map actually comes from the early 90s. Today it would be nicely geocoded and show everything so clearly, but it really shows the beginning journey of our work with people from around the world. So the map is full of pins, and each of those pins represents a person or a group of people and what country they came from. And then, of course, the yarn, their journey coming this direction. We know today those pathways aren't so straight and clear as these yarns. They are people who maybe come from somewhere in Africa and come to our southern border and make their journey north from there. So even the term refugee or asylum seeker, they aren't as clear-cut terms these days. People are arriving here from all over the world. The current rate for over 100 million people is about, I think it's about 2 people every minute that are displaced in our world today. And so with that level of displacement, they're coming in all kinds of journeys here. This one I like too, because it really is what I grew up as a child in church experiencing in reverse. We had maps like this of where we sent missionaries from our church out in these yarn pieces. And so it really represents a reversal of the Great Commission and God sending people to us from around the world, where when I was a child, it was where were we sending people out to do? And both are completely needed. You know, people to go to the ends of the earth and reach people who've never heard, and for us to be good neighbors to the people God sends to our own backyard and build relationships that both honor Christ and show His love to those that are around us. Difference.
And so your role now is church relations. So tell us a little bit more about what your role entails.
Okay, sure. I think maybe just a working description would be that my role is really to help build bridges between churches and the work that we do. And that work involves people who have come from really all over the world. This past year, 105 nations through our local office here. So helping churches really see the newer neighbors that we have that God's giving us in our own backyard.
And so in the news cycle currently, we'd see Afghan refugees, Ukrainian refugees, and those are probably the most prominent two that we hear about the most right now.
Yeah.
Where are, you said 105 nations, where are some of the other larger groups of refugees coming from?
It's interesting. We definitely had a period where it was from all over, people from all over the world coming, and then when things happened in Afghanistan, Afghanistans went to the front of the line because they had to get out quickly as evacuees. And we really didn't see people immediately from the Ukraine because there was a lot of hope for people as they sought asylum across the borders to try to get back into their own country. And now, because of the United for Ukraine efforts that have happened here in our country, we're beginning to believe we have 11,000 applicants here in Illinois for people to come, which is the second highest after New Jersey right now in the country. But those really took first place because they were extreme needs. They were called parolees, which I think government uses some terrible terms to describe people who are coming here temporarily. But they were expedited out of their country and came here. But our newest, I would just say this past week, for instance, people from Central African Republic, people from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Eritrea, Sudan. We've had a long history from Nepal here, people from Burma. I know last week I saw a new listing for Thailand, someone coming in from Thailand. So we're really, we're a place that helps new neighbors start over. And wherever they come from, Chicagoland is one of those popular places to begin life again.
And what would you say are some of the biggest needs of the refugees who are currently coming in?
Yeah, I think we often think about the material needs of refugees when they arrive here, and certainly there are things that we do to help set up an apartment or to provide them getting the resources they need in the beginning. But I think the most difficult thing for someone who's new to an area is the feeling of loneliness, not having anybody that they know, feeling out of their element. And that's really where we see the church as a very important partner in these times, because they can be that friend. They can help orient someone to a new area and just help them not feel so alone.
And that really segues really nicely into my next question. So if you are a local church, how can you get involved with World Relief and refugee resettlement?
All kinds of ways. Basically anything that you think about that would be needed to help someone start life again, we have volunteers who help alongside those areas. So if you want to help set up an apartment, we need help with that. If you'd like to donate things to help furnish the apartment, we do that. If you'd like to pick them up at the airport, we have people who help us as transportation assistants with that. If you'd like to be a friendship partner and just get to know a family and once a week check in on them and see how they're doing, or if you'd like to do that as a small group, our Good Neighbor teams do that as a group. There are other things in education where people could work in a classroom setting. Our legal service team does clinics, and so we have churches that help out with citizenship clinics. And then the last would be in the area of case management. So as we're helping a family adjust, there may be some special needs for them to get to medical appointments. Sometimes trauma involved, so there's counseling. So we have groups that help out with group therapy for that. So that's just a variety of kind of a quick smattering of things that people definitely get involved in helping with.
Wow. And so what are some of the challenges you see, as you've been with World Relief, some challenges churches have had with getting involved with refugee resettlement, and how have you guys helped them walk through those challenges?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that I see on the front end is really helping churches see that these are people who've come from a different country, a different culture. So there's some equipping that we try to do for that. We try to help them understand the people that they're going to be receiving and some of the things that we need to do to empower them and not enable them in their work. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is people want to jump in, immediately and do things, and sometimes even in a good desire you can create a bad outcome. And so we really want to try to help churches not feel like they're thrown into the fire, nor that they jump into something prematurely and cause more damage than good. So helping equip them for that, helping them get some training to be able to step into the work is probably one of those initial barriers. I mean, language is certainly a challenge if they're new here, but it's amazing. Often their kids and our kids will play together well. You can do a lot by sign motion and getting people to go to different trips with you, but I think understanding where they've come from, what their challenges are, and how you can really be Christ's hands and feet to them is really important for a good ministry opportunity.
Yeah, when you talk about the translation issue, I just thought of Google Translate. So I came right to my mind. Yeah. I've used that a couple of times myself. Yeah. So give us, we talked about challenges some churches have. Do you have any success stories, one or two success stories you could share with us about churches being involved? Yeah,
I think one of the ones that to me stands out has been the journey over this past few years with the Nepali community. We had really worked with a group of people who had very little exposure to Christianity, so this for them was kind of a new experience. And then we had just a horrible incident that happened maybe 4 years ago now, where a patriarch in the community took his life. And when he took his life, we pulled the community together as best we could to say, how can we help you all? with your grieving. And as we talked to this community meeting, one man stood up and said, "If this man's death surprises you, then you must not know us very well." That's a pretty damning statement, if I can say that on tape with you all. So we asked, what do we not know? And he went on to explain that because they had been a slave people in another country and they were thrown out of that country, they weren't really welcome where they were nor where they had come from, and they became a stateless people. And as a result, they have one of the highest suicide rates of any people in the world. And he said, but it's interesting, everyone that you've brought us that's helped us here have all been Christians, and they seem to be such hopeful people. And he said, I wonder if they could help us find hope. Not at all about material things, things that they didn't have. It was just they were hopeless. And I would say to you as a church or as a Christian, if you can't provide hope to people, I don't know where your faith is, because that's the most important thing that we can offer. And that's resulted now in a community of house churches that have been birthed, some first baptisms, some initial churches that have begun public worship now. Just a few years back now, it's been about 3.5 years, we saw first baptisms, including an 82-year-old witch doctor who committed his life to Christ. And I just spoke in one of those churches about a month ago, and we talked a lot about the fact that, you know, they've received much, but what could they give? Could they learn to give and help others? And after the service, I just kept having people who I knew had very little come to me and just put money in my hand and say, Ukraine, help people, Ukraine. And for a special offering, they collected almost $2,000 as a small immigrant congregation to try to help new arrivals. And so to see that community of people really come to know the Lord, to be congregating as a church, and now to begin helping others who are new arrivals to me over the course of these 4 years, it's been a really beautiful journey.
Yeah, there's some really powerful and beautiful stories. And you can even hear the challenge in those for a local church. So what kind of training does World Relief offer a local church to be able to navigate issues, you know, those kinds of stories?
Yeah, it's training for individuals and for teams. So if you're going to be volunteering with us, there's those opportunities, but then partnerships. So if you're a church and you really have an interest in a group of people that we're relating to, we really want to try to build a relationship with an immigrant congregation, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to communicate the gospel in the heart language of the people so that they can make disciples who make disciples. What's interesting in the case for the Nepali people that we were working with was there were no churches for them. And so we saw maybe a half dozen churches of all different denominational or non-denominational backgrounds come together and say, together we're going to do something to see a work of God begin among these people. And it's been a beautiful thing to see.
Mm-hmm. So. And you've already mentioned this a couple of times already, but to just give some maybe a little bit more guidance on this issue. There's a lot of folks in our audience. I mean, we're dealing with Evangelical Free Church of America, people that it's important to them that they share their faith in Christ and display their faith in Christ. In a refugee situation, like I said, you already told some stories about this, but what are some guiding principles you give them for how I want to communicate my faith, because we've come across this. I want to communicate my faith, but I don't want to come across as someone who's trying to take advantage of somebody or something like this, but in a way that genuinely commends Christ to them and shows them I'm doing this because I love you.
Yeah, I think the principle of your witness being in word and deed is very important, that they go hand in glove. And so you can say, you know, I want you to know about my faith, or I want you to know about Jesus and what he means to me. But when you do that alongside of serving someone and meeting very practical needs, there are incredible opportunities for you to talk about what motivates you to do that, and your faith comes out very naturally. I think sometimes we're concerned about, am I going to say the right thing, or am I going to say it with this culture in the right way? And when you lead with love in action, people have a whole lot of grace in wanting to hear what you have to say. It's when you want to say things and you haven't really demonstrated that you love them that makes that a challenge.
So last question. So
Okay.
Our audience is pastors, lay leaders in a local church. Is there anything else that you think they need to know about World Relief, how to get involved, or those types of issues that you'd like to say before we close?
I think one of the things that I would say is very important about, I can't speak for other organizations, but for World Relief, is that our mission is to empower the local church to serve the vulnerable. So a slogan that I like to use is that we like to make the church the hero in what we do. And so what we're going to do in any activity that we're involved in is we're going to meet real needs of people, vital needs of people who are new to the area. And we're going to try to make a more welcoming community for those that are here. And we want to bring people together. We want to bridge and build things that allow people to come together. But the church is going to be right in the center of that. And we're not asking you to come alongside us in our ministry. We're saying we want to come alongside you and let you be the church among a people that we're serving. And if you can step into the lives of people here and be the church, and we can provide those vital services, we've got a great partnership for ministry to happen.
And if you and your church would be interested in learning more about how to get involved with World Relief, we will put the links in the description section below, and you can contact them. Keith, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.